My name is Doug Neufeld, and I'm a seventh grade world history teacher at the Adams Middle School District, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And I've been teaching for just over 24 years, but I also worked at a high school as a classified employee, so I've worked at a school for over 34 years. And what I'm going to present is not just a lesson plan, but all of the other elements that I use in the classroom to make world history fun and exciting. Part of the reason is I always ask the students at the beginning of the year, what subject do they dislike the most? And it's always world history. And when I ask why, they say because it's just all this old boring stuff where nothing has changed. Why do we study this? So this is what I do in the classroom to make it a little more exciting. First of all, the content for me in California, a seventh grade world history teacher, cover everything from Roman Empire, Islam, and then people on the continents, including then the Reformation of the Church and the Renaissance. So I'm on a trimester system. I'm concentrating just on one specific thing here to give you examples, Asia and more specifically China. And I have three elements that I use as themes. Well, one is culture, is I will be studying culture and teaching culture all year long, and that includes all of these elements from language, food, currency, etc. The second is relating the past to the present. If we don't do this, it's not going to be exciting. So all of the cultural aspects from past to present. And I do this by telling the students I'm pretending that they are going to become world travelers. So I am preparing them to go to places around the world. And one of the ways I do this is we keep a dreams list of places that we'd like to visit. And I tell the students to be honest with this. They don't have to put all historical places. They could put down anything, including food places, sports places, but I said, keep this list because I've been doing the same thing and I still have a list of places I'd like to visit around the world. But I've kept my own list for decades. In fact, when I read any newspaper articles, magazine articles, I cut them out and put them on folders for different places around the world that I'd like to visit. So this is helping my students become world travelers. One of the big things to focus on, I've noticed over the years, is geography. We don't tend to cover it as much detail in world history as we should, and that's why about 15 years ago I came up with a plan to give a quiz every Friday based on the unit that we are studying. So here's an example of the very first quiz I would give on Asia, because this is when we're studying Islam and where it started. Of course, the next quiz would also involve North Africa, West Asia, but this is an example of the very first quiz, only about 10 or 11 places. But after about 4 to 5 weeks, our final quiz on Asia will include all of these locations. And then after every unit ends, I have a geography quiz of all of the places, the locations we've had so far over the year. It's to practice for the end of the year, because at the end of the year, I have this gigantic geography quiz with 155 locations. And the first year I started it, students had to get only 60 places correct to get an A. So many kids got it correct that every year I increased it from 60 to 70, etc. Till now the last couple of years, students have to get 120 correct to get an A out of 150, 155. So if they get more places correct, they're all extra credit points, which is great. We have about 73% of the students each year who get an A on this final quiz. I also have an honors version, because on the regular quiz I give the students a list of 155 locations that they can use, but the honors quiz is blank. They have to know how to spell and use proper grammar. By that I mean capitalization, to get the quiz correct. And every year there are several kids who take the honors version and get all 155 right. I know this really works with them and helps them, because these same students, when they're in high school, our local high school district has an AP geography class in 9th grade. So many of my former students take that class and come back to tell me how much they enjoy it. Now, part of the classroom as well is how it looks, because I've seen so many classrooms that are just have nothing on the walls, are boring places. This is my class, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit. But I like to cover the walls and the counters with everything. I really do, again, like geography, so I like globes. All the pictures on the walls are places I've taken around the world, so I've been kind of lucky to have traveled a few places. But my classroom is a good, exciting place, and it doesn't stay like this all year. This is just an example of the beginning of the year when I cover the entire world. Then when we start with a particular unit, all of the um, photos that I include around and other instruments are things from that part of the world. For example, when we're studying Asia, then I have all photos from the different places I've been to in Asia and artifacts, etc. So this is what my classroom looks like. You also see that gigantic map on the wall. That was very helpful. That was just some wallpaper that I used, but I love using that when I walk around the room. What also helps me quite a bit is I have a laser pointer. So, and a really good thick band on it. So I use that a lot walking around the room, pointing to things, asking questions, etc. But this is my classroom and teaching world history. Again, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Artifacts from places where I've been. And as I said, I change the entire room every unit. So all the pictures change, etc. Look at my classroom and the fantastic students I have here. Now you notice too that I have two flat screen TVs. You know, I've known the importance of elements, visual elements. When students walk in my room, the first thing to do after they have a seat is open their Chromebook and write down from the agenda posted at the front of my room, what is our homework assignment? What will we be doing and what is due in class? But then I have on my flat screen TVs what we are doing today in class. And I have both TVs, flat screens, connected with a laptop. And here's what is rotating on display. First of all, a famous quote. I change this once a week. Different people in history. And studying history, but other teachers have mentioned to me it's not just his story, it's her story. So I made modifications on that. You'll see there's a date in the upper right-hand corner. And not only the date, but what day in the Gregorian calendar. And that's why I teach about calendars and history at the very first week of school. Then I put on there what we are planning to do in class that day, our agenda. Then, what happened this very day in world history? I tried to find events that have to deal with the unit that we're on, for example, Asia, but I change this every single day. Next, more specific, what is our goal in class to learn that day? In this case, learning about the difference between Europe and Asia at a particular time, and then the quote. So these I use every day on my flat screen TVs at the beginning of the period, but I also use my flat screen TVs later in the period for other devices on certain days. And I'll show you what that is in a minute. And I've known the importance of visual elements in the classroom. And that's why I've used the TV screens since before the time we even had flat screens. I had two carts in the room at each end. So but these new flat screen TVs connecting with the internet is fantastic. Here's another way that I use the flat screens. I've been using flat screen TVs or TVs in the classroom for years because when I started this is before we even had flat screens. But I know that students are visual learners, a great majority, and that's why I use a lot of this in class. Now, I don't use it just for displays like this. I also have brought in my older Apple TV device from home. So that's why I don't have to spend any more money or anything like that. It's just an older device. But I do have Apple TV at home, so I don't spend any extra money. One thing that I like about this, though, is as a teacher, I have videotaped many events in history. And now I have bought many of them on Apple TV because they're a better view and without commercials. But here's just some of the apps that I have, but let me show you one example here. Engineering an empire, I love this in world history. And for example, on Asia, here is a show about the China, and no commercials or anything like that. So I can play it over and over again. So I have many shows like this, and shows on YouTube that I can use to display on both of my screens at the same time. Again, there are a lot of great shows on the History Channel and other channels that I like showing in the class. There's no such thing as any free time in my class. We always start the year with what I call Unit 0, and we cover things like geography, latitude and longitude, BC on the timeline, yearly calendars, cardinal and ordinal numbers, really important because these are going to be based on every unit that we're going to be studying. So I call this Unit 0. Then we move on to the Roman Empire. Again, there's no such thing as free time in my classroom. If there's 45 seconds left in the room, then I come up with extra credit questions all the time. But this is relating the past to the present. For example, I ask kids, do you have china at home? Take a picture, give me a description, why you got it, send it to me and I'll give you extra credit. Eat Mongolian food, I give you extra credit. Peruvian food, here's several pictures from this year already. A kid went to El Pollo Inca with his family and had the Peruvian food and drank the Inca Cola. Thai ice cream, that new way they have of producing it, that's on the bottom. Always, always giving extra credit, linking the past to the present and history. Again, when there's no such thing as free time, when there's any free time, 45 seconds left in the room, I walk around and ask questions and give these rewards. I call them broccoli rewards. But we're always reviewing what we've covered in the past. For example, Roman numbers, cardinal and ordinal numbers, etc. Always giving questions. But I love coming up with all these questions, just walking around the room using my laser pointer, point to the map, to pictures, etc. Also, it's important to cover so many other events that are related history to the present, yet we tend to not cover it. For example, Halloween's coming up, the oldest holiday in world history. What does it mean? Also, Friday the 13th. Why are people nervous about that? We look at Christmas. Was Christ really born on December 25th? We look at the different calendars, like in China. It is the year 4719 right now. I love talking about toilets in Japan during our National Toilet Day here in the U.S. and how different they are. So these are all the different elements I cover in the classroom as well, not just the old events in history. And a way I like starting our unit on Asia is also talking about different languages, because so many people assume that everyone in Asia speaks Chinese. That's how I make my students some really good world travelers. They become aware of the other languages on different continents. So this is one of our opening assignments on Asia. Students write a sentence in English and then they translate it into other languages, Hindi, Japanese, etc. And this is where they learn that there are really quite different ways of writing. For example, for a sentence I came up with, where is your best ice cream shop? This is how it would be written in different languages in Asia. And this is what the kids learn. Such an exciting activity in class. They are such good world travelers about being aware after this. And this is why then at the beginning of that unit, I also post this on the doors as we enter the classroom. And we introduce students to say hello in other languages. Ni hao, konnichiwa, shinshao, etc. One thing I like showing too about becoming world travelers is currencies, because in the United States, our money is all the same size and same color. Never realized how different monies are around the world, particularly when we're studying Africa. I do have some money from Zimbabwe. I have a $20 billion bill that is worth less than a penny. So we talk about that in traveling around the world. One of my favorite little extra activities is a story I saw in 60 Minutes a few years ago about Kit Kats, why Kit Kats are so popular in Japan. So I like showing that 60-minute session, and they have over 200 different types of Kit Kats in Japan. So I'm able to get them to show students. Here's a new activity I'm starting this year is being able to compare what happened on one continent with what happened on another continent at the same time, because that's something we don't do. We tend to study everything in units. So the end of every unit, we're putting important people and events on a calendar based on its location. And we're going to do that on every unit. So later we'll be able to find out and compare different areas, for example, Asia and Europe, say the Middle Ages in Europe and what was happening in Asia at the same time. So this is a new assignment I'm starting this year. It's on Google Classroom. I also like ending each unit with showing a film, and not just a few minutes of the film, but the entire film, because we stop and discuss it, how it pertains to real history, what's real and what's not real. But this is one of those things that when I see students come visit, they always ask, do you still show? And then they come up with me their favorite movie. Do you still show that film? So it's an important part of remembering world history. And as part of that too, when we are studying a unit, I like playing music from that time frame. And it's interesting because the music that is interested in most students is the music from India. Because when I show the film My Name is Khan after our study of Islam, I've been playing music from India, and it's such beautiful music. And kids always come up and ask, how can I get that soundtrack? I love that music. So. Also, during the time of the film, since I have collected spiral notebooks and I'm grading, I like coming up with special projects that kids can work on at home, like here, writing in different languages, creating your own coat of arms for your family, create an African mask or necklace. And so this is the work that students complete while we are watching the film. That is their homework. I don't have time to show this, but this is some other really important elements that have made teaching for me much easier. I've created my own website years and years ago, and this shows the different elements that I use. Now, if you're interested, maybe visit my website, because this is covering elements like why do I videotape so much? I post an agenda. I post a podcast on what we've been doing every day since the beginning of the year. This helps when kids are absent, helps parents know what their kids are to do. So this is an 11-minute video. I'm going to skip this. And one last thing I'd like to mention is just the last few years, learning so much about technology. Some of the best apps I've ever used: Quizlet, fantastic for geography, Pear Deck, and being able to check the level of my students' proficiency just on a quick look at a screen. Can they identify locations, people? Can they spell it correctly? Can they write it and capitalize it properly, etc.? And then Edpuzzle, another fantastic app. So all this I put on my website if you're interested, and I really hope you enjoy teaching world history. Thank you very much.